Welcome back into Titans Today. I am Tom Downey. With the hire of Mike Borgonzi made by Tennessee, I wanted to break down a couple different free agent targets that he could try to bring over from the Kansas City Chiefs. And, adding players from a team that, is at least in the AFC game, might make the Super Bowl again, maybe win it again, always seems like a pretty good idea. Now, if you are on board with that hire, which, again, as I mentioned on our last show, I am a big fan of it. I think it's a really good move by Tennessee. Like the video if you like the hire of Mike Borgonzi as the Titans' new general manager. We'll go bigger names to start here, and I might have a tough time finding a Titans fan who doesn't want to do this. Trey Smith is the offensive guard, one of the best offensive guards in all of football. This is a Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber offensive lineman. He is set to be a very expensive free agent for the Chiefs. Now, there's also a chance that, maybe they do something weird and cut Joe Thuney to make room to afford Trey Smith, but he's going to be expensive. This is a dominant run blocker who is consistently rated as one of the best guards in the NFL. Didn't allow a sack this year. Did allow some hurries. He is awesome at football. And you can contrast it with your current free agent right guard, Dillon Radunz, and it's not even really all that close. You can look at any top free agent list, and even acknowledging that, guards are guards and they're not the sexiest names, Smith is pretty consensus top 5 player. Now, maybe he gets franchise tagged. Maybe they re-sign him. Who knows? But with Radunz set to be a free agent and just a massive hole on the entire right side of the offensive line, having plenty of cap space, and not really paying anybody up front. You paid Lloyd Cushenberry, but Latham and Skoronski and maybe your right tackle too, we'll see what that plan is there, are all on rookie contracts. You're not paying a quarterback right now. Throwing a bag at Trey Smith is the exact type of aggressive move I would like to see this Titans team do. Plus, you're bringing him back home. He was from Tennessee. He played at Tennessee. So do you agree with me? Do you want to sign Trey Smith? Why for yes and for no? Let me know in the comment section, the pinned comment, actually, of today's video. The ad comes here on YouTube. Take advantage of it. Head down there and go vote. Next up is Nick Bolton, the linebacker, who I've always liked him. I was a fan of his coming out of Missouri. I don't love him in coverage necessarily, but as a bit of a throwback thumper who's not a liability necessarily in coverage, I am intrigued. I mean, look at them tackle for loss numbers. 11 TFLs is a lot. 180 tackles was insane in 2022. I think some of those were coverage issues more than anything. Bolton is not a top 10 linebacker. I don't know what his market's going to look like. I think it might be a little bit deflated because I think he's better in run support than he is in pass coverage potentially. I think if you can get better play out of Cedric Gray, you got those big defensive linemen up front, let Bolton run and chase. He's a really good run support player. I like that fit in Tennessee as well. How about a safety, Justin Reid, who could also double as your emergency kicker if it does come to that as well. Has been a very good football player since the Chiefs signed him away from the Houston Texans. Now, it's also worth mentioning here, a lot of what Mike Borgonzi had done was on the pro player personnel side, a little bit less so on the draft personnel side, which stands out because he was a big factor, I believe, in the Chiefs choosing to sign Justin Reid from the Texans all those years ago. He's a good football player. You've got one safety I trust right now in Amani Hooker. I'd like to add another one. Maybe it's a bit expensive. You can't sign all of these guys, obviously, but I think that's a name you need to consider. Let's go to receivers, plural here. First up, why not just reunite with DeAndre Hopkins? Maybe a new quarterback would make things a bit more intriguing for Hopkins. Look, you're going to have an overhauled room here at wide receiver. Calvin Ridley's back. That's not going to change. 1,000-yard receiver. Better quarterback play should lead to better statistical production too. We'll see if Tyler Boyd ends up coming back. I have my doubts there. Nick Westbrook-Akina is a free agent, but I don't want him to be my 2. I don't know if I want him to be my 3. Traylon Burks was, I don't know. Mom always said, don't have anything nice to say. Don't say anything at all. DeAndre Hopkins was a trade, of course, from the Titans to the Chiefs. They picked him up in 2023. Went for 1,000 yards. Not that similar numbers to or from the play of Calvin Ridley. Different quarterback situations to an extent. Why not? Bring him back. I've also got interest in a speedier threat in Marquise Brown, who, again, a lot of pro personnel stuff side. for Mike Borgonzi. Obviously got the assistant GM title, but the background. He was the assistant director of pro scouting, director of player personnel, then football ops. So I think he was involved a lot of the pro personnel side. Brown has not done much. He was injured for almost the entirety of the season. I don't think it's going to be expensive. He's bounced around with the Ravens and Cardinals. His numbers have declined each year. On a one-year deal, maybe he just wants to go back to KC. That certainly wouldn't be a surprise. But adding him and then drafting somebody on day 3 or somebody's on day 3, I think is a pretty valid plan for Tennessee at wide receiver. Today's show is made possible by GameTime. GameTime's got a new feature. It's called GameTime Picks. It makes getting tickets for events even easier. That doesn't have to be sports, especially with no Vanderbilt football, no Tennessee football. Plenty of Predators games to go to, though. Plenty of shows, concerts, comedy, theater in the Nashville area or wherever you're watching from. Titans fans, not just in Tennessee only, obviously. That of our videos prove that. Download the GameTime app to filter out the fluff and use GameTime Picks to only get incredible deals on great seats. Use the all-in pricing feature to see your total cost up front, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. Go download the GameTime app over at GameTime.co. Use code CHATSPORTS after you create your account to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. That link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. Download GameTime today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Appreciate GameTime sponsoring us here at Titans Today. Let's go back to the defensive side here. A couple different defensive linemen I think that are affordable, that I think also fit what you want to do. Mike Pennel is a name that if you've watched some of our other shows over the years, I've mentioned. It was like, hey, this is a solid football player's been a real journeyman. He's 34 years old. He had the great run in 2023 for the Chiefs when he spent most of the year on the practice squad. Was with the Chiefs in 2018, 2019, goes to the Falcons, the Bears, comes back to KC, and just keeps putting up. He actually put up a career high in sacks this year with 3. He had 5 in his career, or he had 2 going into this year, which is kind of crazy to see the massive jump there for Mike Pennel. He's a run stopper. And if you lose someone like a Sebastian Joseph Day, if you want an additional piece so it's not just Devondre Sweat at nose guard, Pennel is, I think, a cheap, affordable option who, in the end, might just want to stay in KC because he gets to compete for championships every single season. I want you to name a free agent who you want to say. It doesn't have to be just a Chiefs, ex-Chiefs. That's what we're doing today, obviously. But it doesn't have to be just that. Name a player for me in the comments section of today's show. Next up is Tershawn Wharton, who has had a bit of a breakout campaign, I'd say, for the Chiefs. He's a little bit different body type, listed at 6'1", 280. Was I believe, an undrafted free agent coming out of Missouri S&T, which we're pulling deep there with that list. It's like a bunch of guys from the 90s played. It's Missouri Tech. Like that's not a household football name. Bonus points to anyone in the comment section who can tell me what Missouri S&T's mascot is. But he had 6.5 sacks this year, 7 TFLs as well. He's been a 5th year now with the Chiefs, continues to show progress, continues to take steps forward. And they kind of Sebastian Joseph, here you go. How about the Nico Autry role for Wharton? That intrigues me. Then there's Derrick Nnadi, who was a much higher draft pick by the Chiefs several years ago, 3rd round, I believe, out of Florida State. His production's always been kind of meh. 3 sack season back in 2021. Kind of just is a snap eater along the defensive line, which I do think you always need. And I've got question marks about those snap eaters. Sweat's going to be back. I assume Jeffrey Simmons is back. All the other top guys are free agents. Now, DeAndre Coburn will come back. TK McClendon will come back. If you lose Sebastian Joseph Day, adding one of maybe 2 of these guys, I think fills some holes in that defensive line room. And then we'll wrap things up here with a pair of pass rushers. First up is Joshua Uche, who I like as a situational pass rusher. The numbers haven't always popped off the screen. I think he had a chance to make more money 2 years ago when he had 11.5 sack season. He's had just 5 since then. This also would not surprise me if you see Josh Uche, if the Chiefs keep finding ways to advance in the postseason, suddenly making some more impact plays, but he also hasn't done a lot this year. There's been some injury stuff. He was inactive technically against the Houston Texans, which raises some red flags. But when healthy, I think he's been an impactful player. This kind of falls into if he's my number 3 pass rusher and is deployed in predominantly pass rush roles, I think there's a lot of upside there. I want to retain Harold Landry too, but getting more pieces, I think, in the pass rush room makes some sense. Landry's got a big contract though. And that's going to be a decision this team has to decide on. Do you keep him? Do you cut him? Do you trade him? I think you could find a trade partner. I would keep him and probably extend him, frankly, because I don't have much depth behind him. What would you guys do? K for keep, C for cut, T for trade. And then there's Charles Omenihu, who has not played much this year for the Chiefs. Just 6 games. Injuries have been a big factor. Is certainly worth mentioning that he only had 1 sack this year. He's played 1 playoff game and already has as many sacks and more TFLs than he had in anything else. Had a sack and a TFL against the Houston Texans. He was a 7-sack player in 2023. The injuries have always been kind of a red flag there, but I think adding a veteran like Omenihu does intrigue me. That's 10 names from the Chiefs you can go try to poach. Maybe you get 1 or 2. History says that'll probably happen, by the way. We will have you covered on all the latest Titans news and rumors throughout the offseason. If you haven't already, hit that sub button. We are 125 subs away from 10K.